Something that you're going to get accustomed to when you're working in 3D is taking geometry and making more of it from nothing. In other words, using things like a knife tool to take a simple cube and slice it at will. So I'm going to go ahead and put my lines on here, and I'll turn this into an editable mesh. And as you can see here, we only have pretty much one big slice on every side by default. But if I want to cut this cube in some fashion, I can go to my Mesh menu, Create Tools, and I can choose Knife. Now, nothing appears until we choose something for the knife to cut through, i.e. we have to choose a mode. For example, points mode, or edges, or even polygons. So I'm going to go to my points mode, and let's go back to that menu, and now it's ready to go. I'll tear this menu off by clicking here. So let's take a look at what we have when we choose the knife. And I'm going to do a simple operation real fast. I'll simply click and drag, and you see we have a white line that appears, and it won't stop until we let go of the mouse. So I'll let go right here. And as you see here, we have some points that we added to our shape. All right. So we just cut this shape, which is very handy for doing all kinds of things like creating really cool buildings or, robots and that kind of stuff. One of the things you want to avoid when you're cutting your geometry, though, is the creation of n-gons, unless that's what you really want. An n-gon is a polygon that has more than 4 points. So if you recall when I talked about the geometry of a model, you see we have 1 point, 2, 3, 4. So this would deform properly. But sometimes if you use the knife tool and you're not paying too much of attention what you're doing, you can wind up with geometry that's not quite right, where you have more than the allotted number of points to give you some nice deformation. So be mindful of that. Now let's talk about another mode here. I'm going to go ahead and undo both of those knife operations. And if we have the knife tool still selected, let's go down to the Attributes Manager and look at the options we have for how we use the knife. Now, as you see here, we're in line mode, and I can choose loop mode. Now, loop mode is very handy, and when we hover our mouse above our object, we can get a preview as to how we're going to get a loop sliced through our object. I'm going to go ahead and click here, and I'll click here, and check it out. We've sliced a loop all the way around. This is handy when you want to create all kinds of detail in your mesh. So if you're creating furniture and you want to have some parts of it extrude, or you're creating a spaceship and you want to cut wings out, for example, you can, use the loop tool to give you some more geometry to work with. It's also handy when you're creating characters. So you can use the knife tool in loop mode to choose where the arms might pop out. So I might cut there, and I might cut here, for example. And if you look right here, this might be a good spot for an arm. And I could use it again to start cutting out where the neck might be. So I can just go ahead and move over like so, do this, and do this. And keep in mind, I'm being very sloppy. I'm not being precise at all right now. But you can see that I might have a nice area for a neck, and I can go ahead and extrude from there. So it's a great way to take a basic shape and choose how you'd like to slice it. Now, in a way, it's almost like working with parametric objects, except for I have more control. As you see here, this one is way longer, this cut right here, than any of these guys here. Whereas a parametric object I'd have to have pretty much uniform divisions all around at first. All right, guys, so that is a look at how you can use the knife tool and the different modes to cut lines and loops to create more detail and resolution in your basic models.